Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So earlier today, I was watching a YouTuber's video, and this YouTuber was talking about biracial people, basically saying that they're not black and they shouldn't speak out on black issues, etc., etc. And I just wanted to take time to share my thoughts about this issue. It's an issue that came up before in my video about Jesse Williams. He's the African American biracial guy who received an award from BET. And during his award, he made a powerful speech that received a lot of attention and acclaim. And a lot of people brought up these same issues before about biracial people, questioning their commitment to the struggle, questioning their sincerity, questioning their racial identity. And I just wanted to take some time to talk about this. And this particular YouTuber was basically questioning another YouTuber's sincerity, questioning this YouTuber's identity, questioning whether or not this YouTuber was for real, and also talking about intentions, like if his intentions are really to help liberate black people. And then also, she addressed the issue of colorism in terms of this man allegedly putting down dark skinned men. So I want to talk about this without mentioning names because I just want to deal with the substance instead of dealing with the personalities involved, because the issue is bigger than the personalities involved. First of all, the first question is, are biracial people black? Now, technically speaking, they are biracial. They are not black. They are, half black and half white. Just from a biological standpoint, if you were to just look at it that way. But in this society is governed by social constructs, and one of those constructs is race. And in this society, biracial people are viewed as black people. And that's just the reality. Whether we have opposing views, whether we say that that's not the case, that they are not black, the fact of the matter is, no matter how those individuals identify themselves, the society views them as black for all intents and purposes. And I think that us as a people, we are already a minority in this country. I think that the last thing that we need to do is divide ourselves up into subcategories, further weakening us, further dividing us, further making it easier for these people to conquer us. We should not surrender to colorism. So, that's my point on that. I don't, divide our people up. I won't say, well, because somebody's biracial, they're not black. Because for all intents and purposes, regardless of how they identify themselves, this society views them as black and it treats them as black. So that's the first thing. I view them as black. The second thing is their commitment to our struggle. Now, we know throughout history, light skinned people have had some kind of privilege in the society, and they still continue to have privilege in the society. This society is based on dividing people of color up. And one of the ways that they divided people of color is by putting these lighter skinned black people on a pedestal, by telling them that they are better than darker skinned black people, by giving them access to certain opportunities that dark skinned people didn't have access to. They help to further divide the community. And if you look at just history in terms of the first black person to do this, the first black person to do that, often these very first black people to do X, Y, and Z are often very fair. And that's because this society had a preference for these lighter skinned black people over darker skinned black people. And that preference was internalized by black people. So you had black people set up organizations, You had black people set up brown paper bag tests. So if you were darker than the paper bag, that means you couldn't go to the event or you couldn't join that particular elitist organization. So we internalized our oppression and we oppressed ourselves. You know, you had these lighter skinned black people oppressing darker skinned black people. And the community as a whole embraced this myth of white supremacy. So lightness was equated with greatness and darkness was equated with inferiority. And that continues today. So that is still a major problem in our community, this light skin privilege issue. And that's a legitimate question to raise when dealing with these questions of identity, because often what happens, and I understand why people question, this issue of racial identity, because often what happens is these lighter skinned blacks benefit from privilege. So you could have a light skinned black person saying the same thing that a dark skinned black person is saying, but because it's coming from a light skinned person, people will look up to that person and they will admire that person. They will flock to that person because they have been taught that that person is better. And you have a lot of these color struck women and men who flock to this kind of stuff. They flock to somebody who's lighter. They view them as having a greater or more significant voice, even though they're saying the same thing that all these other people are saying. So that's a valid question about leadership and about like how, unfortunately, a lot of our people are still blinded by colorism. And, that's just a fact. That's a reality that we cannot escape. The fact of the matter is light skin privilege still exists. And for that reason, often mulattoes are in, a more influential position. And that's something that needs to be addressed. But I'll also say this in terms of commitment to black people, I think that we need to move away from this idea that biracials cannot be involved in our struggle. But I think that as they are involved in our struggle, we need to bear in mind that we still have these problems of colorism, that we still view these people as somehow better. And we need to get over that sickness. That sickness, poisons the movement. But in terms of light-skinned people or biracial people being committed to the struggle, there's a long history of biracial people being actively involved in our struggle, contributing to our liberation as a people. Many of the great people who have accomplished many things, who have been instrumental in our struggle, have been biracial people. People like Frederick Douglass, people like Booker T. Some of you admire him. You saw my video about him, but a lot of people admire him. He was of mixed race. You have people like W.E.B. Du Bois. You have people like Thurgood Marshall. You have people like even Malcolm X, the great Malcolm X. His mother was biracial. And many of us, many African Americans, unfortunately, due to the legacy of slavery, due to the legacy of Jim Crow even, a lot of us have, been products of biracial relationships or, interracial relationships. In a lot of cases, it was forced. During slavery, there was rape. During Jim Crow, there were situations where a black girl was forced to have sex with white men. So because of that legacy and because of the legacy of integration, where you have black people and white people mingling, a lot of black people are mixed with a lot of, white people. So we are mixed race people. So, so that makes this issue even more complicated. It adds to this problem of colorism. So, the bottom line is this. I don't question somebody's sincerity simply because they're biracial. I don't question that at all. There are plenty of examples of biracials being actively involved in the struggle and being genuinely committed to the struggle. So I don't judge anybody based on the fact that they're biracial alone. I look at their deeds, I look at their intentions. Now, some of these people may not be motivated by, genuine intentions for our liberation. And the same is true for people who are not biracial. Some people are in it for the money. They're not really about the struggle of our people. And that's something that we have to discern. We have to look at the facts and analyze the situation. So, those are my thoughts about this issue. Tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.